Here's a quick tutorial video about positive and negative numbers. So first of all, we should talk about the number line. It's a tool that students use to make counting easier. This is especially true when we're learning for the first time how to properly think of negative numbers. So at first, thousands and thousands of years ago, when human beings started to learn how to count, the only numbers that really existed were positive integers, positive whole numbers, like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so let's put those on our number line, and it goes on forever. Put 3 little dots. These are all the positive numbers. These are all the numbers that human beings knew at the very early beginnings of our history. Later on, and surprisingly late in the history of men, later on, people started thinking about negative numbers and what they represented. And a negative number represents the symmetric opposite of a positive number. So if you have a number that's positive and you take its equal in the negative direction and you put them together, they cancel each other out. So for example, if I have positive 2 and negative 2, if I put them together, positive 2 with negative 2 gives me 0. It cancels out. And because I said that they're symmetric and opposite, we draw them symmetrically and opposite on the number line as well. So we extend the number line on the left side of the 0 and we draw numbers with negative signs. Of course, they go on forever also. This number line is more or less complete if you include also all the fractions and decimal numbers. That will make all the numbers, all the real numbers that we use in high school. But how does this help us understand adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers? Well, here's how it works. We have to rethink how we talk about positive and negative numbers. There's another way to add numbers and subtract numbers. So instead of subtracting numbers, now what you can do is add a negative number. Adding a negative number is the same thing as subtracting something. So for example, if I do negative 4 plus 5, what I do is I circle in red, I circle the negative 4, that's where I start, and I count in the positive direction 5 times. That's what negative 4 plus 5 means. And if I do that, I land at 1. So negative 4 plus 5 is like saying 5 plus minus 4, or 5 minus 4, which is 1. Notice that here I added a negative number. 5 plus negative 4, which is the same thing as saying 5 minus 4, is adding a negative number. Because we can add negative numbers now, we can get rid of the subtraction altogether. We don't have to say minus anymore. From now on, we can say, let's add a negative number. Let's do one more example of adding negative numbers. So I draw my number line to help me in the question, and the question is negative 6 plus 12. So here I'm adding a negative number, negative 6, to the number 12. So the way I wrote this out, negative 6 is on the left, so I start with negative 6, and I move in the positive direction 12 times, and I land at 6. I want you to notice that negative 6 plus 12 is exactly the same thing as saying 12 plus negative 6. This is because of the commutativity property of addition. And 12 plus negative 6 is the same thing as 12 minus 6, which you know is 6. Our number line gives us the same answer. Just be careful now. I'm going to make a little table. This little table will show you the rules that you have to follow when adding and subtracting numbers. When you have a number like this, let me write this over here. I'm going to change my color to purple. And if I write 2 plus a negative number, let's say negative 2, then this is the same thing as saying 2 minus 2, which is 0. Notice that a plus next to a minus becomes a minus. If I do 2 minus, and then I write positive 2, It's the same thing. Really, I'm just saying 2 minus 2. That's also 0. So a negative next to a plus gives a negative. If I add 2 plus a positive 2, 2 positives make a positive. 2 plus 2 is 4. And finally, here's the tricky one. 2 minus minus 2, when there's two negatives following each other, that's the same thing as saying 2 plus 2. Two negatives make a positive. So these are the rules of adding and subtracting positive and negative numbers.